I'm CK. Haven't built anything from Frequency Central in a couple of months, so I picked up their Klang Stadt VCO. It's their implementation of Electric Druid's wavetable oscillator, so it's digital, not analog. It's got a lot of interesting features and lots of fun things to do, and I love wavetable since my favorite rack mount synthesizer in my studio is my old Waldorf Microwave XT, and I love it to death. So we'll put this together, see how it sounds, and I hope you enjoy the video. So here's the box from Frequency Central in Coventry in the UK. Picked it up from thonk.co.uk, where I pick up a lot of modules. Nice paper packaging, I like it already. It's a bag full of stuff. Here's a bunch of pin headers. Oh, a row of them, which means I'm going to be cutting those up as we go along. Put that in that bin. Something in there, I'm not going to look at that yet. Here's the power connector, or power cable. Now, let's look at the front panel and circuit board. First, we'll get the box ready for recycling. Okay, so where's my pointer? Golly gosh, I left it over in the other part of the workshop. Back in a second. Okay, we've got waveform, sub-waveform, which is interesting, cross mod, I think that controls how the two waveform interacts, frequency, fine, sub 2, crush, which changes the sample rate, I believe, LFO rate, it's got a built-in LFO, frequency modulation, control voltage, wave control voltage, sub control voltage, crush control voltage, glide time, glide, portamento, whatever you want to call it, and there are jacks for input on that, 1 volt per octave CV in, and I think they say the frequency CV input accepts 0 to 5 volts, quantized to semitones to cover the MIDI note range 0 to 63. You can use an attenuator, of course, if you want. So wave out, sub 1 out, sub 2 out, clang out, and LFO out. So that's nice. Look at the boards. PCBs by Johnson Dunn, which is typical. Design Tom Wilshire and Rick Holt. Good quality boards as always. Through-hole plated. All the components on this one are marked with their values. Let's see if this one has the values marked. Yes, all the values are marked. So we've got, besides a whole slew of resistors all the way along here, we've got the Druid voltage controlled digital oscillator chip. Then we've got TL084, TL072, 72, 8484, so a bunch of op amps. Got some trimmers here. Power connector here. Excuse me. And that's pretty much it. Looks pretty straightforward. Again, all the brain work is going on in this Druid VCO, VCDO microcontroller. Let's see what we got. There's all our resistors and diodes. And look, they marked all the tape on the resistors with the ohm values, which is thoughtful of them. Bunch of foil caps. Okay, so that's that type of passive componentry. And in this bag should be all the mechanical bits, the jacks, the pots, and so on. Oh, good to have your op amps just kind of floating around in the bag. Actually, it's not, but I think that's what we have. Yeah, all the chips are just kind of floating around in the bag. Okay, I'm actually going to switch bins here. I'm going to put these in here and all this other stuff in here. It's not typical and not necessarily a great idea to have all your semiconductor chips, integrated circuits, tossed in with all the jacks and potentiometers and other kinds of stuff. But I'm going to pull all these ICs out of this mess of mechanical components so I don't damage anything. Again, they probably weren't, somebody wasn't thinking when they threw all these integrated circuits. Oh, and here's a couple of little caps too. Here's some decoupling caps, I think, 101s, yep. And some transistors or voltage regulators, I'm not sure which yet. Yeah, I don't know if I would have packed it this way. So let me get another, I'm going to get some of this static suppressive foam, and I'll put the ICs in that. And let me take the ICs and the LEDs and the capacitors out of this tray. I'll just keep the mechanical components in this tray, and I will, while we're looking at stuff, I'll take the panel nuts off. So good quality pots. Let me look at the knobs. The knobs are okay. They've got a brass set screw and a metal plate that the set screw goes into, so you can't strip the plastic like folks who unfortunately use brass set screws in plastic knobs. And that's a fully brass sleeved one. I like those. Those are my favorite knobs, of course. And so that's it. Pretty standard component set. Nothing too unusual and nothing too out of the ordinary, I believe. So I'm going to get the soldering iron heated up, get the build guide up, and we'll put this thing together. The build guide's pretty straightforward. With this set of components, there's not much to fuss with or talk about. There is one thing that they do mention in the build guide, that if your board shows a 1K in this position under the oscillator pot, then there's a fix you have to do. But if your PCB shows a 10K resistor in this spot, then you don't have to do anything, and we've got a 10K resistor there, so not going to worry about that one. Now let's do all these billions of resistors. Let me get the most numerous one first. I think it's the 10Ks, but I'm not sure. The 100Ks are about the same. I'll do the 10Ks first, so let's do one to see how everything's going in terms of fit and how the board holds solder. Again, I've done many frequency central builds, so I'm pretty sure that the board is good quality. One thing on this one is you don't bend the resistor leads fully up against the body. Probably go 1.5 millimeter on away from the body on each side. Let's see how this solders up. As I anticipated, it solders up just fine. It's a good quality board. Now we've got about 20 or 30 resistors to do, and I've just talked about everything interesting about putting resistors on this board. So it's resistor time, which means I'm going to put the video in fast playback and mute the commentary, play some background music, and while you're listening to some of my music as the background, I'm going to be listening to an Eberwein concerto on WQXR, FM out of New York. Gosh, the wind has just come up and things are banging around. I don't know if you can hear that in the background. But so WQXR, which in my opinion is the best classical radio station in the world, and you can get their app at your local app store, and it's free, and that's what I'll be doing. So enjoy resistor time. Okay, we're almost done with resistor time, but not quite. What I ended up with is I've got 4 extra resistors, and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 slots left. Now, 2 of these slots or 3 of them are for 47K resistors, and I've got 2 extra 4K7 resistors, which have no home. I'm also missing a 33K, which is not here, and a 220, which goes right here, and I've got a spare 200. So the resistor packing wasn't quite accurate, but I'm gonna dig those out of my spares, but I'm not going to do that right now because it's gotten late and the cats want to eat. So that'll be it for this evening. Went through my spares bin and pulled out the resistors I need. So we'll finish up resistor time. Now we'll do the diodes. 5 of them. Black line on the diode goes to the cathode line on the circuit board symbol. Next, we'll put the IC sockets on the board. Bunch of different sizes, so make sure you get the right pin count in the right place. Pins are a little snaggly too, so make sure they all go in. Notch facing the notch. Oops. Rest it on my pinky finger behind the board. Solder one leg. Take a look. It's a little up. So I'm going to press on it with my index finger, reheat that, and there, now it's flat. Now do that for all the sockets. And I think I got them all. I did. Now we'll do all the other little guys. We'll do all these 104s. 1/10 of a nano, or 100 nanofarad. 1/10 of a micro. And as usual, I don't fight these out of the paper tape. I just clip them off. Okay, now we'll put the transistors on the main board, and be aware that one is a 7.9 LO5 and the other is a 7.8 LO5. So you want to put them in the right place, of course. Now we'll put the trimmers on. I think they're all the same value, but let me double check. Yes, they are all the same value. 203s, so that's a 2, a 0, and 3 more zeros, which means, like it says, they're 20Ks, and there's one 47K. Huh, interesting. So let me get the 203s on first. Now this says 47K, but this is a 503, so that's 50K. 47K, 50K for a trimmer resistor is not a problem. And now we'll put the power header on. Where is it? And it's got a cutout for where the notch goes and a broad white line for where the red stripe goes, but it's always a good idea to double check your keying, and that is correct. So we're all good there. Now we'll put this big old 47 microfarad cap on. Good plus sign on the board indicating polarity. Another 47, where does that go? And then we'll do the male pin headers. And that is the logic board. We'll do the pots and control boards, control board next. 1, 2. 1, 2. While I'm here, I may as well put the various chips on before I go onto the pots board. Put the brains of the operation in, the Electric Druid chip. Now, put the 3 pots up at the top first, 800s. I mean, not 800s, 100s, for crying out loud. And these do not have indexing tabs on them that you have to cut off, so that's nice. They're kind of loose. Huh. The locking pin holes are very big, so they're not really locking pins. Double checking the values. I know they're the right, well, I'm assuming they're the right values, because there's only 3 of them. But they don't lock in the way some boards do. Yeah, see, that's just loose. Huh, interesting. Let's see, what does he say here? I'll put the switch in. I'm going to take this backing screw panel nut off the switch. I never really care about them. How tight is this? This is pretty tight. That's very snug. That's nice. Now a bunch of sockets. Let's drop the panel on to make sure everything is lining up fine. Everything looks good. I'm going to put a couple of dabs of solder on these pots up here. One pot there and one jack here. For right now, just to do that. Now normally, see, I disagree with what he just said. I'm not going to solder all that right yet. I'm going to do the pin headers first. Because then I can just lock everything together, and I got to get another longer pair of pliers to cut that with. And of course, with female pin headers, you're always sacrificing one pin. Oh, look at that. I did it without cutting the pin. Wow, I'm impressed with myself. That means I can use that one right there. I'm gonna do one pin on each of these right now before I put the other eight pin one in. Oh, I did sacrifice a pin. There it is. Huh. Interesting. Check the alignment on the pin headers. That's good. This one's way off. That's better. And that one's okay. You do all these pin header pins. I'm going to drop the LEDs in. Now I'll put the panel on for realsies. Oops. Very nice fit, by the way. Well done by them. And now I'm going to put a panel nut on the pot that I soldered one leg on. And a panel nut on the jack I Soldered one pin on. The front panel's on, nothing's going to go anywhere. I'll leave the LEDs for last. And now a whole bunch of soldering on all these components. And now, because there are so many components on these two boards, I'm going to take a look, make sure I got all of them. Oh, and one thing, all these pots are the same except this one. This is an A taper. All the rest of these are B tapers, so just be careful when you're putting the board together that you note that. Making sure I got all this stuff right. That all looks good. I'm going to put the power connector in right now. I'm going to put all the panel nuts on this one. Okay, now we got to put the knobs on. I got to see which knob goes where. Okay. Little knob goes, the cross mod goes in the center. And these are all flatheads. Boards are mated, and that, my friends, is that. That's the front, the side, the back, the other side, the top, and the bottom. Now we'll put it in the rack and see how it sounds. Okay, we've still got a little calibration to do also. Let's turn it on to start. See if anything catches fire. Nothing catches fire, and we've got the LFO LED flashing. Let's change it, see how fast it'll go. Okay. So let's hear what it sounds like. Just roll through some waveforms just for fun. Bring the mixer up. Take cross mod out, put it all the way over there into this sub-oscillate waveform. So it sounds pretty good as it is. Hold on, now we'll go do some calibration. So he says that you can expect the low note on a 5-octave keyboard not to sound. Oh, I got portamento up. Let me turn portamento down. Interesting, I'm not getting any. I'm going into my MIDI from my MIDI thing. And I'm not getting note values. Okay, now it's working. I don't know why it's working now. So we can get back to calibration. I guess I just needed to, I don't know, turn the cameras on, off and on, and it fixed itself. Let me turn this down a little bit. Go back to calibration. I'm going to take my keyboard all the way down. That's my low C. And I'm not hearing what he calls flutter. I did a little tweaking back there. Take the frequency knob all the way down. So let me take this all the way down, give me a good solid sound, and I'll set the volts per octave, make sure that's right. Bring up my tuner. It's showing an A for a C, so let me get that tuned up. Now we'll go to the next C, and that's showing a G. So that's good enough for me for right now. Once I get it in my actual performance rack, I'll just set the frequencies how I want. Let me try this with the sequencer now so I can do some interesting stuff with this. Okay, sequencer is still not giving it the right voltage. Now we change the waveform. Now we're bringing the sub waveform. Now we're 50% one, 50% the other. Now we can tap out directly from the subs. That's kind of sweet, isn't it? Put some crush in it. Let's go to sub 2. I'm going to take the LFO and plug it into one of the waveforms. Where's the free cable? Let me take this LFO, and I'm going to plug this in to wave CV. Turn up some Now I'll plug that into crush, and I'll go back to wave out here. Try this on frequency modulation. I don't have any portamento on. Let me try that. So a portamento glide works fine too. I'm going to take the LFO back into sub CV. I'm going to take that back out. I don't like that much. I'm going to take all the crush out too. And it's nice, it's handy having an LFO on board to do whatever you want with. Put that in frequency modulation. I'm going to put it in sub CV right now, actually. Put a little portamento in. Now let's go out Klang, just 'cause. That sounds pretty neat. Now I'm not touching the keyboard. Yeah, that's all just with the LFOs triggering things. Back to wave. There's a little resonance. So that all sounds really good. It's an interesting waveform synthesizer, and the interaction between the subwaves and the wave and frequency modulation is pretty neat, and having a little onboard LFO is good. Another good module from Frequency Central, the Klang Stadt, and I hope you enjoyed the video.